Okay, so let's continue to redirects. And I/O redirection. Usually the standard input would come from the keyboard, for instance, or the mouse or something. And the standard output would go to the screen. And there's also standard error. All of those can be redirected with Linux commands. So we are going to talk about the standard input, standard output, and standard error. When you run a command that can take input, give output, or do both, redirection lets us redirect the input and the output to any file or folders we want to. And it's also possible to redirect errors specifically instead of getting it together with regular output. So you will get output and other errors and other output to different files. As default, the standard output and standard error are sent to the screen, and the standard input would come from the keyboard or the mouse. So if you have an example, for instance, if you're writing ls, then of course you see the output on the screen. And I'm in the directory which has some exercises for this section. And redirects, they are useful particularly if you're working with large outputs or inputs, multiple outputs, inputs, or if you wish to save the output for later. It could also be that you want to use the output as input, the output from one command that you're giving as input for another command. And you can do it with the pipes, as we saw in the part yesterday. But you can also save it to the intermittent result to a file instead. So that's also an option. And there are different types of redirection. There is what is called override redirection, append redirection, and merge redirection. And we'll look at them one at a time and also see a few examples. So first, there's override redirection. So let's think of a situation. You may want to save the output of a command to a file, and you just need the output of this command, and maybe it gets updated because there's a new output you want to save, or maybe it doesn't matter which one it is. So because of that, you just overwrite the file, or maybe you just create a new file. And in that situation, you can use override redirection. And that is actually the usual one you use, I'm guessing. So this larger than is standard output, and less than is standard input. So whenever you run a new program, the kernel creates a table of file descriptors for the program. And file descriptors are pointers to files. And it's not so important to think of other than this is the reason why it is named the way it is here. So convention is that the first three entries of this table of file descriptors has 0, 1, and 2, and they are used as standard input, standard in, standard output, standard out, and standard error, standard error. And the full syntax of the redirection operator includes an optional file descriptor, so you can recognize what it is that is being redirected. So if you just would write the command and then override redirect to a file, that could also be written as command and then one redirect, one being standard out to file. And command that takes input from a file could be written as command 0 and this less than or redirect input because 0 is standard input from file. So let's take an example. And you should code along here using this exercise table that you fetched and unpacked yesterday or today or whatever, but you should go to whatever directory you put it under, and then the directory that was created, exercises, and then redirect and link. And that is where these examples are. So an output of ls into a file that I'm here calling my ls output.txt. Let's try do that. ls my output, my ls output.txt. So let's see what is inside of my ls output. What is inside is the same as we saw here in ls. Anything that is written after this redirect or larger than is written to a file. So you could just do it like this here with cat, and then you can continue writing and sending stuff to the file until you hit Control D. But before I do that, I'm also just going to try and show you up here. So you remember that you could also put a 1 here to say it is the standard output that goes there. So let's try and do that and see that we get the same. And we do. And as you can see, it also override it as we expected it to. So let's try this other example here. And in this case, then we will try and do cat and then send it to the file, myfile.txt. So I'm opening it here, cat, redirect, myfile.txt. And then I can just write something. This is some text that will end up in a file. I can also make several lines like this or something like this. And then when I hold Control down and push D, then this that I just wrote, the file gets closed and it is redirected all of it to myfile.txt. So let's see what's now inside myfile.txt. And that is indeed everything I wrote. So if you instead do cat and then this input redirection of myfile.txt, then the input of then the content of this myfile.txt will be printed to screen. So let's try do this like that. So in this case, of course, it is the same as what you just saw up here. But yeah. And you can split standard error and standard output, where you send standard error to a file called error.log, for instance. And let's try and just first run this my program to show you that it will give an error like this, because there is no such file or directory in this directory here. Or rather there is, but it is called myprogram.sh. So let me run that and then do 2, and that is the error, and 2 error log. So now I redirected the error to, as you remember, file descriptor 2. And I now have a file error log that contains my program, no such file or directory. So that is also what I got here. So try instead running it on the program imagefind.sh. Let's see what happens there. There you get more content, but it actually doesn't give you the content we want because it's looking in a directory that is named differently than what I have here. So let's take a look at ImageFind. And you will see I have it in home, but because I put in a other directory here in between, Linux, then it couldn't find that directory. So if I run it now, I should get a different direction. And again, I'm in a different directory. Sure, it is another subdirectory of exercises. But let's instead try with my program.sh, and this time we are giving the full name of it. So when I do that, it will do what is inside of it, as you can see here. It will create the directory, and that it did here. And it will then try to run this command here. And then it notices that there's an error here in this. So because of that, it's giving us 2 errors. But this command here, it actually does, as you can see here. And it has various stuff inside of this directory now. And since it's counting those, then how many files there are, this here. So it's giving the answer 7. So this is an example of a program that you can run that both gives error and gives output. And that is thus a good example to use here, because then you can see that it will only put, for instance, the errors into it. So let's try and do this and say I only want the errors. And let's see this in the errors. It got indeed the errors, and as you saw, it sent still the output to screen because we did not ask to get the output redirected, only the errors. And now you see it gets another error because it cannot create the directory because we already did create it. So all the errors went to the log, and all the output went to the screen, just as we wanted it to. So that's good. So what if you don't want it overwritten? What if you want it appended instead? So you want to keep it, and you also want to get the new information, the new errors or output. And you can do that by append redirection. And you do that with these double arrows, 2 greater than or 2 right arrows, or if standard output, and 2 left arrows as standard input. So again, this directory we are in can be used for some exercises. I will clear the screen so we have more space to run. So it's easier to see. So I will add some text to an existing file. And my file.txt, we created that earlier. Let's see what is inside of it. Looks like this. And now I'm going to send even more text to it. And I'm going to do that with echo in this case. Some text here for the Fine. And that is going to be appended to my file text. Let's see what is now inside of my file with text. And as you can see, this extra line was now appended to it. You can do this in many ways. You can use echo, you can use cat, or you can use printf. Let's try with printf and see that the same thing happens. Another line in the file. And that goes to my file with text. And as you can see here also, that if you're doing printf, it does not automatically do a new line. So if I instead write this again and then do a new line, is find it on this keyboard, or rather I can see it, but I cannot show it. Okay, I'm going to copy it. I have a different layout on my keyboard than what is written on it right now, so it's a little bit difficult. So I'm doing this. And now you can see the first line is still there without new line, but the next one I added has a new line. So that's great. Another thing you could do is you could append one existing file to another. And you can see there's file 1 and file 2. So let's try and do that. It's cat file 1, file 2. Let's see what is now inside file 2. And I should have shown it to you before, but it added it to it. I can show what is inside file 1 text. So this file contains some text and then an empty line, and that is what is added here. So we can do it again. And it added it one more time. You could also, of course, get the content shown to screen as well as being added to another. So I put the 7 here. Then it will indeed add it to the file, but it will also throw to standard out. So we'll get both in this case. It actually only sent it to standard out because that's what we asked for. What about standard input with these double left arrows? A common way is to let it know what the ending text is when we do this, what to use as a delimiter. And you could have that a program will read everything you give it until you see a delimiter. Everything will be seen as input until then, and then it will do the tasks that is asked to. So in this case, you could count the lines, words, characters on several lines of input. And then we could do that with the word count. And we are telling it it's going to take input, and it will continue taking input until it meets the delimiter EOF. So let's do that. We'll see. Takes input until it sees EOF. Line with words. The line with words. And then we write EOF. And now it counts the lines, the words, and the characters. So this works. The third option is merge redirection. And with merge redirection, you can redirect output of a command or a program to a file descriptor instead of to standard output. And what you do is you can merge the output from stream 1 with the output from stream 2, or you can merge the input from stream 1 with that from stream 2. So now, remember what we saw earlier. Descriptor 0, standard input, 1, standard output, and 2, standard error. So sometimes you want to write more than one of the output streams to the same file. And the common thing is that you want to write the standard output and the standard error to the same. You can do it this way. So you give the command, and then you say redirect, in this case, override redirect to the file here. And you want to take the standard error and merge it together with the standard out to the same file as the standard output. So those two streams goes to the same file. That's the same as writing it this way. It's a little bit longer, but it might be more descriptive, because remember, this as default is redirect standard output to file. And then it says, in addition, take standard error and redirect it to the same place as what standard output goes to. So that. So let's look at a few examples. So if you want to send the standard output and standard error to mylog.log, then you're doing it this way here. So let's just copy it and see what it's doing. So here we have the program from before, the one that both creates errors and output. And then you are sending the output to mylog.log. And then you are also taking the errors and sending it the same place as the standard output, then to mylog.log. So you see nothing got sent to the screen. Let's see what is inside mylog. It now contains all the stuff that would otherwise have gone to screen, the errors and the output. So we got what we expected here. Okay. So we learned about redirection, override, append, and merge redirection. And now it's time for some exercises. And I think we should